In this lesson, we're going to talk about integers and how to do various operations with them, starting with adding and subtracting. But first, let's talk about what an integer is. So integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So what that means is if you were to look at a number line, like the one here at the bottom, we have all these whole numbers as their tick marks. Whole numbers are numbers 0 and above, okay? And their opposites, so 1 and -1, 2 and -2. But as you can see along this number line is we have no fractions and no decimals. If a number is a fraction or a decimal, it cannot be an integer. What is important is that we are talking about both positive and negative numbers. That's what an integer is. So let's talk about adding integers. And we're going to start with adding integers that have the same sign. So we're either adding two positives or two negatives. So if we look at this first example, we're going to use two different types of visual models to help you out with this. Okay? The first thing that I want you to do is create a model using plus and minus signs. So I'm going to start with a positive 5. So I'm going to make 5 plus signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to make 7 plus signs. 6 and 7. Okay? Now the question is, do I count all of these or am I going to cancel any of them? Something to remember is that if you have a positive and a negative, those are different, so they can cancel. But if you have a positive and a positive, or a negative and a negative, you just keep them. So here I have positives and positives. I don't see any combinations of a positive and a negative, so I'm just going to add them all together. And here I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 positives, so my answer is a positive 12. Now, you don't need the plus sign. You could just have a 12. When we're talking about positives, the plus is implied, so our answer is just a positive 12. Now, the other way you could do this is to make yourself a number line. Okay? And I'm going to put my starting number right in the middle. Then we're going to count the number of spaces of our second number. But which direction do I go? Let's think back to that number line I showed you before. We have positives in this direction, and we have negatives in this direction. So it all depends on if the number that we are adding is a positive or a negative. In this example, we're talking about a positive, so we want to go right. So I'm going to make 7 little tick marks to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we're going to add in our numbers and see where we end up. So this would be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we end up at 12, so our answer is positive 12. You kind of see how this model works? Let's try it with some negatives. So in example 2, I'm going to start with this negative 5. And using my first type of model, this time instead of making 5 positives, I'm going to make 5 negatives. Because again, we're talking about a negative 5. And to that, I'm going to add 7 more negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then think, are we going to cancel or are we going to keep? These are all the same, so we keep them all and just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 negatives, so our answer is a negative 12. And in this case, you do need that negative. Then we can make the number line and do the same thing we did before. except this time my number in the middle is going to be a negative 5. We are adding a negative 7 to it. It's negative this time. So which direction are we going to go? We're going to go left. So I'm going to make 7 tick marks going in the negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we can add in the numbers. Now remember, as you count farther in the negative direction, you are going to get your numbers larger. So this is going to be a negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11, and negative 12, just like we found before. Why don't we try a few of these as practice? Okay, now let's move on to adding integers with different signs. So in this example, number 3, we're starting with a negative 5 and we're adding a positive 7 to it. So using my first type of model, I'm going to draw out 5 negative signs. And then this is a positive, so I'm going to make 7 positive signs. Now remember here, I had said that when you have one positive and one negative, those actually cancel. And look what we have in this example. I have a negative and a positive. So these are going to cancel. Each combination of one positive and one negative will cancel. Think about what we have left over. I have 2 positives left over, which means my answer is a positive 2. Or you could just say 2, because that positive is implied. Then you could do it with the number line. Now remember, you don't have to use both types of models, but I want to show you both so you know you could use it. So I'm going to put in the middle here my negative 5. Then I have to think about which direction I want to go. If this is a positive 7, which direction do I want to go? We want to go right. So I'm going to go to the right and make 7 tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we can add our numbers. Remember that as we go to the right, these negative numbers get smaller. So negative 5 goes to negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. Here's 0, 1, and 2. So 2 is our answer. Let's look at example 4. I'm going to start with 5 plus signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And to that, we're going to add 7 negative signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, will these cancel or do we keep them? These are going to cancel. And what do we have left over? We have 2 negatives, so that will make a negative 2. So negative 2 is going to be my answer. Let's try it with the number line model just to be sure. I'm going to put that positive 5 right in the middle. And this time, if we're talking about a negative 7, are we going to go to the right or to the left? We're going to go to the left because we're talking about a negative. So we're going to go 7 spaces this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we just count. Remember, this is a positive 5, so we're getting smaller as we go there until we start in the negative numbers. So this is going to be a 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, and negative 2, which is what we found before. So that's our answer. Let's try some practice.